South Arkansas. That's Important to Me with Cliff and Dr. Bill. Dr. Bill, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fine, my brother, and how about you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a little different today.
Yes, it is.
I'm actually in Missouri, the humongous town of Ellington, Missouri, and actually calling in to be with you all today. I'm thankful for everybody back in the studio that has gotten everything together, and I apologize for making it hard on everybody.
No, that's okay.
I'm thankful for technology that allows us to be able to do this, and I'm happy to hear your voice, Dr. Bill.
Well, it's good to hear your voice too, Cliff, and you're in the Show Me State, so I bet they are showing you a good time in Missouri, and we miss you, but I'm glad for our listeners that you can be connected the way that you are, and we're looking forward to an exciting afternoon this hour, talking about video game addiction, or as it's better known as gaming addiction. And so I hope our listeners are excited to learn some facts that they don't know about gaming addiction and video games. If you've got teenagers that play these, and in a little bit we're going to give you a little simple on-the-air test to determine if that is a issue for you, and you can even answer for your kids if you want to see what you think their responses might be. And I think we're going to have a great show. Cliff, tell them how they can call in and ask questions if they want to.
Absolutely. We are going to allow you to be able to call in today. That number is 870-864-1400. You can call in and get to us today and be able to talk through things with us. I know we don't just bring topics, we bring tests.
That's right.
We were able to actually get some work done today to make sure that, hey, if you feel like this is something that your child or spouse is battling, here are some ways, some questions, and some answers that you can see and test and be able to start a conversation, not an argument, but a conversation.
Exactly.
And but Dr. Bill, here's the deal. We always do this, and I know it's your least favorite part. It's basically telling them why they should listen to us.
Well,
and
that's right.
I don't have much to go on, but you got a lot. So why don't you give us your credentials today to say, man, here's why these tests that I'm finding and doing make sense for you to listen to us.
Sure. Thank you, Cliff. I've been in the mental health field a long, long time, over 40 years now, and so that's going to date me for the listeners. As some of my students will say about Dr. Beiser, he's older than dirt. And so I have been around a long time, but I was privileged to attend Ouachita Baptist University back in my younger years, where I majored in both religion and psychology. So I graduated from OBU with my Bachelor of Arts with that double major. Then I went on to grad school at Southwestern Baptist in Fort Worth, Texas, and I took my MDiv, was my Master of Divinity, was my first degree in pastoral counseling. Followed that up with a Master of Arts in marriage therapy, and then followed that up with a PhD in family therapy, and then went on to get my certification in hypnosis. Went overseas for 10 years and taught in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and then came back in 1988, and I was licensed by the Arkansas State Board as a what's called LPC, Licensed Professional Counselor. Then I got my LMFT, which is Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist, and then I helped found the Board for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselors, and I received my Licensed Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselor certification. So I've been in private practice for a long, long time, and I've been teaching at Ouachita Baptist University for 34 years now. So I'm blessed to be able to say that I sit across some of the brightest young men and women that you could possibly want to meet, and I'm preparing them to experience the joy and pleasure that I have had in my lifetime of sitting down and helping people deal with the issues in their life that are causing them difficulties and concerns. And that's what this show is all about, Cliff. You and I sit down together and we talk about topics that are of interest to people today. And from what I hear, people are resonating very much with what you and I talk about. And so we look forward to the show today and talking about gaming addiction. As a matter of fact, let me just say that for those of our listeners today, let me kind of put that in perspective. The World Health Organization actually calls it gaming disorder, but the whole idea of video game addiction is a huge issue today. As a matter of fact, we know that 64% of the U.S. population are what we call gamers. 64%. That's a lot of people. We know the average male gamer is 33 years old, so you might think, oh, well, I would have thought it would have been a teenager. The average female gamer is 37 years old, but males between the ages of 18 to 24 are most at risk for gaming addiction. 94% of males, 6% of females represent the gender breakdown of gaming addiction. And it might be of some interest that 69% identify as Caucasian, 13% Asian, 18% are other ethnicities as far as that breakdown is concerned. Cliff, does that suggest anything to you?
Yeah, I will tell you, I think it's one of those things that most misconceptions would be that it would be a lot younger than that, and that it doesn't let go even when you get to an older age.
Right.
Those things kind of hang on with you.
That's right.
And I'll tell you this, just from personal experience, if EA Sports hadn't canceled the NCAA football game, I would have been in your statistics. I guarantee you. I had whatever gaming console I could have, and I was the guy who would go to the Walmart at 12 o'clock a.m. or 1 o'clock a.m. to get the new release of that game to come out. And whenever they canceled that game, it was a hard time on me. My wife rejoiced for she was going to get more done around the house. And but yeah, there's so many things that can play into you being addicted and something that you just couldn't put down.
That's exactly right. And the thing about it is, Cliff, we are an addictive society. Some of our listeners might say, well, thank goodness this doesn't apply to me. But here's the thing about it. How many of our listeners maybe have done some binge watching? Now you say, what is binge watching? Well, binge watching is when you get hooked into a series and you just keep watching episode after episode after episode. Now, I used to think a long time back, oh, that's just something college students do. But I have found out that that's not so. A lot of adults binge watch a series. They'll just sit there and they'll watch. And what's so interesting is it's built in to attract you to do that. It'll say, for example, next episode starts at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and boom, off you go to another episode. And that in and of itself, people will just sit there and watch the countdown happen and go right into the next episode. Before you know it, they spent hours just binge watching a series. So, this can be a huge problem. Matter of fact, getting back to the gaming addiction, though, let me just say that there are 4 things that usually are indicators that of physical symptoms of a gaming disorder. One is going to be tiredness. And I think our listeners would understand that after you have been playing all night long, or you've been playing for hours and hours, and look, it's not unusual for me to have clients who are playing into the wee hours of the morning, if not most of the night. Then they have to get up and go to school or get up and go to classes. As a matter of fact, we know, Cliff, that this can be such a serious problem that kids literally can fail their college classes because they're spending all their time playing games. So tiredness is one. Headaches and migraines are another. Carpal tunnel syndrome, I'm sure our listeners again would understand that one because of the use of the controls, and then lack of personal hygiene. They just don't have the time to take a bath because they're too busy playing their game.
Yeah, I again, personal experience, and people are going to think I'm a covert addicted to gaming. I don't even have a console anymore. But there was a time I was playing a game that it's a very popular game, and I started playing it. And the reason I played it is because I like flying, and I like doing basically flight simulators and things like that. My granddad's a pilot, and I aspired to be one. But basically, I was playing this game, and you could fly in the game. And man, I started playing it, and I started getting headaches all the time. And I thought, man, this is not. It can't be good for me to play it all the time. And another thing I was doing is I was riding down the road, and I'd start humming the songs from the game. It kind of gets in everything about you. And I'm telling you, it is they make them so you'll want to play them.
Well, they really do. They really do.
They make them multi-level so you can, you're going to beat the next level. And I think also too, a lot with the apps on your phone, because there are apps on your phone now that are games that are gaming. People are playing those things. A ton of people where I'm at right now is they're playing Fortnite. They're playing a lot of these games. I think there are certain games that will actually, when you get to a point and you feel stuck, where you just feel like you can't go on, there's some type of algorithm that lets you win to get a little bit farther, and it keeps you locked in.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The thing about it is, Cliff, and I really don't like this. Call me naive or call me Pollyanna, but it seems to me the longer I live, the more it seems like things are all about the bottom line being finances, and the amount of money that people are making on video games today is just absolutely staggering.
Yeah.
I have some statistics that say that the industry generates $7.4 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And that is a lot of money. Some reports speculate that the video game industry could make $300 billion by 2025.
Wow.
So, they're obviously in the business to make a lot of money, and I think that's sad when it comes to the point of addicting individuals and interfering with their day-to-day life.
We know there's definitely a lot of reasons to keep people playing.
Yes.
And I think I'm the same way about a lot of things, that anything can be done in moderation,
of course,
and it can be a good thing. I think what happens is we have to watch our children.
We do.
They're wanting to be on screens all the time, and when I was growing up, we didn't have screens that we could just hold in our hands all the time, and we got outside more, and we did more things outside. And
well, sure, the screens we had were the screen doors.
Yeah, that's right. My mom and dad would say, "Stay outside," even when we wanted to come in. But I do believe that gaming can be a good thing. It can be fun. People can do it, and enjoy life, and it's just like any other hobby. But I do think that there are issues that you see creeping up. You know, you hear stories from across the country about people getting wrapped up in the game, and I know there are cases where people actually believe that they are in themselves in the game,
Right.
and start acting out in the real world like they were in the game.
Sure.
And so then there's, you know, definitely studies that have shown a desensitization, or they're you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. I do. I know exactly what you're saying. And you know, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that when you get into playing these video games, you can very comfortably interact with other people you know, playing together. You can assume a role that you couldn't assume in modern day life.
Yeah.
That you can escape into. And I'll tell you this, Cliff, and I think our listeners would relate to this. While I love life and I love everything that I'm getting to do, including being on this program and being with our listeners, video games can be an escape from the realities that you may not want to face up to, and so it kind of becomes like a drug in that you can get a high, you can have adrenaline, racing, adrenaline rush while you're playing, and you get away from things, and all of us want to get away from things every now and then.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's just like you said. There are people, and this goes to a larger problem I think that we have in our world, in our country, is that there are a lot of people who feel like they don't have a place and they don't belong, and when they get in these different worlds, they can be whoever they want to be.
Well, absolutely.
And what happens is they get. Sometimes people would rather live in that alternate world than live in the real world, because, to be honest, and sometimes I can't blame them.
Sure.
It's very, very hard in the real world, and we as humans have this ability to make it very hard on a lot of people. And,
well, absolutely.
And I hate that. But also too, there are other ways, and we've got to make those other ways more prominent and be something that we can go to, so that playing that game becomes just a hobby instead of a lifestyle.
Well, you're right. You're right. And I want to come back to something you said earlier, Cliff. I can't say enough to our listeners as moms and dads whose children play video games. Now, there's no way that your kids are not going to want to play, and if you've got a kid that doesn't play video games, then God bless you. You know, that's you're way ahead of the pack. But most kids are, because it just is something that kids their age do. And I think the big thing, Cliff, is to underscore what you said, it's parental awareness of what's going on with your kids. I'll be saying this as long as you and I are on the radio. I just can't say it enough. Parents have got to be mindful of what kind of messages their kids are receiving on their cell phones, what kind of pictures are being transmitted to them on their cell phone, what kind of games they're playing, what kind of movies they're watching, what kind of activities they're involved in. Now, some of our listeners might say, well, Dr. Visor, you sound like a little Orwellian here, Big Brother and spying on your kids. But I'm not talking about spying on your kids. I'm talking about being aware of what's going on in your kid's life, because they don't understand many times what they're getting into. They wouldn't know an addiction is going to take place if they keep spending more and more time playing video games. And I think it's up to a parent to say, look, we're not going to play video games at the dinner table. You and I grew up in a day when we sat down to eat at the dinner table, we sat down to eat. We didn't talk on our phones. We talked about our day. We talked about things as a family. Nobody got up until everybody was finished eating. Nowadays, I'm appalled by, and I hear this sometimes from my students, they don't know what a family meal looks like. Or some of my clients, I'll say to my younger clients, I'll say, so what's family meals look like to you? Well, Mom puts it on the skillet, puts it on the countertop, and we come by and help our plates. And I go to my room, my brother goes to his room, Dad's watching TV, Mother's doing something else, talking on the phone, and we're all in separate places. And I think that is just sad. That's a right of that is a family right that should never ever go away.
I think it's important to communicate as a family. And
absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break because we're up against it. And two, when we come back, I want to talk about some of the dangers of being on the chat rooms of those games and things like that.
Absolutely.
Some just stories that I have known personally and things like that.
Yeah.
Not to quote spy on your kids, but to be a parent. And
right.
And I think we're going to talk through those things. It's going to be a good conversation.
Absolutely.
Look, y'all hang with us. We're going to be right back. It's 94.3 FM and 1400 AM KELD. We'll be right back.
Each year in Arkansas, thousands of children come into foster care. Every child deserves a safe place to stay. But there aren't enough families ready to take them in.
At The Call, we're training families to become foster and adoptive parents. By preparing the Christian community to provide loving homes, our hope is to one day see no waiting children in foster care. To learn more about The Call, visit thecallinarkansas.org.
Will you open your home to a child in foster care? Will you answer the call?
Local radio. We're giving businesses something to talk about.
The emphasis in digital marketing budget and how it's spent, there's probably a loss of that connectivity and the intimacy with your general public that you can gain that back very quickly with the reach that radio has.
We're the #1 reach medium. More people tune into radio every week than watch TV, smartphones, tablets, etc.
Stay connected to your audience. Local radio. Call today, 870-863-6126.
Welcome back, everybody. That's important to me. Cliff and Dr. Bill, we thank you for staying through the break with us. We're talking about gaming addictions, the dangers of it, the effects of it. Before the break, we were talking about the dangers of kids being on the games for too long, and something that I just know personal, a story of somebody that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you give us real quick those statistics of the average age of the people who are suffering from gaming addiction?
Yeah, I can run through that. Again, we're seeing a lot of gaming addiction in college students. We're seeing them in teenagers, adolescents. According to the Entertainment Software Association, average gamer in the U.S. is now 30 years old. More than 37% are above the age of 36. The problem is that, like you said, kids are neglecting real meaningful social interaction by getting caught up in the gaming addiction.
Yeah.
They're not sitting down having conversations with other kids. They're playing the games. I'll have clients that will come in, teenagers who may be playing with somebody over in Germany at the same time that they're playing. It's just not the same. A matter of fact, we know that this not only is a problem for teenagers and for young adults, it's also a problem for marriages. They say that 50% of spouses claim to have a stressed relationship due to the addiction. Now, some of our listeners might wonder, well, okay, so y'all keep talking about gaming addiction. What do you mean? What kind of time are we looking at? Well, according to the AMA, heavy gaming usage is playing for an estimated 2 hours or more a day. So if you are, or you have a friend that is, or your child is playing a game more than 2 hours a day, then that would be what's considered to be, according to the American Medical Association, heavy gaming usage.
Yeah. Wow.
And matter of fact, let me say real quick, you mentioned the game Fortnite. I have in thinking about our program today, I did a little research. There are 5 games that are said to be the most addictive video games played today. Those are Fortnite, which you mentioned, where it's a shooter game where an individual plays against 99 other gamers with the goal of being the last one alive. They say this game is played by more than 200 million people. It's made at least $1.2 billion. Okay, League of Legends. That's a multiplayer game where a team of individuals battle another team of players with the goal of destroying their nexus structure. World of Warcraft. Now, I know that's probably going to resonate with some of our listeners or parents who have heard this. That is where a person controls an avatar to explore lands, fight monsters, conquer quests, interact with other players. Over 11 million people around the world at one point have been playing that game. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter game in various settings, and they've, of course, developed it through more and more, like World War II and more modern settings. And then Assassin's Creed is the last one. It's an action-adventure game, the third-person perspective where individuals fight, explore, and complete quests together. So those are, if your kid is playing any one of those 5, those are 5 of the most addictive games today.
Well, and here's the thing about most of those games, and I've played a few of them, and they're the majority of the time spent in those games and doing those tasks and things like that. It's going to almost it's almost going to be a necessity that you're on it more than 2 hours in a day.
Oh, yeah. That's what they make them to do.
If one of those battles are, 15 minutes long, it's not. You'll do 5 or 6 of them, and you've already spent enough time between the time you go and pick and wait. And I'll just to go back to another issue. There are chat rooms in every one of these games, and you can talk to the different people inside the chat rooms. And I often ask people all the time, would you let your 8-year-old or 9-year-old just go somewhere and have a private conversation with a 35-year-old? That's why I wanted you to talk about how that most gamers are over the age of 30 and over the age of 36 is because a lot of times I wouldn't let my 7, 8, 9-year-old go have a private conversation with a 30-year-old.
Of course you would.
That's essentially what we're doing. Every time we don't know where they are, what they're doing, or turning off the communication aspects of what they do, because these things, unfortunately, there are bad people out there.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Who mean harm,
that's
and they know where to go to talk to people and to to prey on people and to groom people and to do those types of things.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, Cliff. And we're not. Of course, we're not saying that if you're playing a video game on the internet, you're a bad person. Not at all. But certainly, these kinds of people know where to interact and take advantage of young people and the gaming industry. That's a good way to have interaction with them.
Yep, that's right. And all these games too. I've played Call of Duty. There was a time when when I wanted to do that. Thank the Lord, I just was never good enough, Adam, to nobody wanted me on their team, Dr. Bill.
Well, the only Call of Duty I have is what my wife tells me to do, but I play that game every day, but you know, it's interesting. You said something a second ago that really resonated with me, and I kind of had a bit of a flashback. When I was a kid growing up, I remember that TV stations would come on and they would say, "It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?"
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that anymore, because the fact of the matter is, I hate to say this, but a lot of parents do not know where their kids are. Now, you can say, yeah, they do. They know they're in their bedroom. Yeah, but it's just like you said. You may know where they are physically, but you don't really know who they're interacting with, and you don't know what kind of influence that person might be having on your kids' lives.
Yeah, I think it opens up a whole new discussion, into the cell phone addiction. I mean, it's one of those. They kind of go hand in hand, right?
They really do. They really do. Matter of fact, we say where there's one addiction. Anytime I have a client, I think I said this on the program a couple of weeks ago. When they come in and they'll tell me what their addiction is, so I'll say, "Okay, and what's your other addiction?" And they'll look at me really funny, and they'll say, "How did you know?" And I'll say, "Well, because that's what the research shows. Where you have one, you always have a second one."
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, normally when I'm in the studio, right at the edge of the soundboard there, I have my cell phone, and it sits right there and on the side, and as soon as, every time it lights up, there's a natural draw for my eye to go over and see what's going on.
Of course there is.
And I'm telling you, right now my cell phone's in my pocket. It's only because I don't have service. And it has been the hardest, greatest thing in the world to not have service, so people can't get a hold of me. But then I always wonder, well, what's going on, So, but I think we have people who have cell phone addictions just as well as people who are gaming.
Oh, absolutely.
And here's what I will say too, and this is just a discussion for parents to have of what they feel like is best for their child. Me myself, I have the ways that I think about it, but anything you want to do, anywhere you want to go, any place you want to be, the whole world is available on a cell phone.
That's
it just
correct.
is.
That's correct.
And there are apps created to get around the parental filters and to knock down the walls, and there are apps created to be secret, and there are apps to all this stuff. And I'll be honest with you, it'll be a long time before I give my kids a cell phone, for the simple reason is that I trust my kiddos, but I don't trust somebody else being able to just immediately get in contact with our people.
Well, that's right.
And me not know about it.
That's
and
right.
I think it's just important to, that cell phone is a great tool. It's like everything. Anything in moderation can be great.
Sure.
That cell phone can be a fantastic tool. We know what it is. You and I have contacted each other on a cell phone. One time you blocked me on accident, and we won't talk about that again.
No, you're not blocked now.
But cell phones can be great to handle business, can do
That's
things,
right.
can look
That's
up
right.
information. I can't tell you how many times in the last week that somebody says, "I wonder what this is," and I've looked it up on Google. But we also have to protect our kiddos.
We do.
And along with that, we have to protect our families and ourselves, because there are a lot of people who are battling things today that you never know what's going on. And cell phones have ended a lot of marriages here in the last little bit. Not just that, but that's definitely one of those things that people are using, and it's just not healthy to use it all the time.
No,
there's got to come a time where you put that thing down and start thinking about the real world a little bit, and that's
right.
myself included.
That's right. It's interesting. I read a study that said to teenagers, if you were marooned on a desert island, what would you want more than anything else? Well, they didn't say the Bible. They didn't say my parents. They didn't say my dog or my cat. They said my cell phone. And
Yes.
and it's just like you said. Your cell phone can do everything but cook a meal for you, and they can even tell you where to go to get that. And it is a complete library. Nowadays kids doing research projects, they don't even necessarily have to go to the library anymore. They've got a whole library at their fingertips,
That's
right
right.
there on their cell phone. And it's interesting, the things that we talked about, we said that, because our listeners might say, well, yeah, I just don't understand what's the big deal about having a cell phone. But other than the disruptions that you talked about, the sleeping habits,
Yes, sir.
the fatigue that they have, insomnia, they can have a disruption in their eating habits. They just skip meals. They have poor nutrition.
Yes, sir.
And they're hungry, but they don't want to miss out on their game because they're so hooked into it. They're isolating themselves. They're not involved with their friends. Actually, they can even be at increased risk for seizures due to the flashing, fast-paced images on video games. And of course, the long-term effects, as a therapist, that concern me is that an addiction to video games can really impair their academic, their career, their financial success, because they're so addicted to the game that
Sure.
that becomes their priority in life.
Absolutely. We've seen it too many times, and I think people may say, well, what do you guys know? Like, y'all are, I know a lot of times we sound like alarmists, but we aren't talking about things that we don't know about. We're talking about things that we are literally seeing as being mental health professionals.
Absolutely.
And somebody could always say, well, I can handle it better than other people can handle it, but we've seen too many people who've come in who say, I thought I could handle it. And with any addiction, I think we always talk about alcoholism. We always talk about drug addiction.
Right.
We talk about those types of things. But what people think as far as as a video game seems harmless.
Yeah.
And so people are less likely to put guards up around things that look harmless. And in addictions, that's exactly what you have to do. You
That's
have to
right.
put guards up.
That's
you can't,
right. That's
if
right.
you're an alcoholic, you can't bring alcohol in the house and just
No.
have it there
No.
by you. If
That's
you're
right.
a drug addict, you have to be careful what a doctor prescribes you to make sure you don't relapse.
That's right. That's right.
And we're less likely to do that with video games.
That's right. And you touch on a very, very important truth that I think it affects all of us, and that is that tragedy or bad effects always happen to somebody else. They're not
Yeah.
going to happen to me, but they do.
They do.
I can't drive completely without abandon thinking that, well, I'm not going to have an accident. That happens to somebody else. No, that can happen to me as well. But that's a defense mechanism that enables us to take the risk we do, because we don't think that will happen to me.
Yeah.
But it does, like you said.
Right. I'm so glad you talked about driving.
Oh, well, let's move on. We won't stay on that subject. That's
I
another
think that was
another
a
time.
Freudian
Yes.
slip.
Yes, it was.
But no, I'll tell you. And so what I would say as well is there's also the other side, right? Because there's extremes to it.
Sure.
So you can't just say it won't ever happen to me. But I think the other side of that coin is that you could get to a place in our world today where you just are afraid to even go outside, and so it's very careful to think about the risk, but also be intelligent, be smart about it, because a lot of times, I tell people all the time, I failed at the cell phone when I was 26 years old, and you can fail at the cell phone at 26 years old, then you can fail at the cell phone when you're 14 or 13 or 10 or 9 or 8 or however early we're getting cell phones these days. And so it's important to just be mindful and understand what's going on. And look, we got to take a break real quick. I hate taking breaks, but I know it's worth it, and I know it helps us learn about a lot of different things. So keep it right here, 94.3 FM, 1400 AM, KELD. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Mayor Veronica Smith-Creer inviting you to listen to the El Dorado City Council meetings live on the Talk of South Arkansas, 94.3 FM and KELD AM 1400. The City Council meetings are held the Thursday after the first Monday and 2 weeks later at 5:30 p.m. If you are unable to attend the City Council meetings in City Hall, we invite you to tune in to the broadcast on 94.3 and AM 1400.
We're the #1 reach medium. More people tune into radio every week than watch TV, smartphones, tablets, etc. While more audio is being consumed than ever before, and you hear people talking about podcasting and streaming, it hasn't impacted the amount of people using radio. And the fact that it's free and it's everywhere and the content is local keeps listeners engaged.
Radio works for us because it's been a proven medium to drive effectiveness as well as efficiency for driving our business and our brand.
Stay connected to your audience. Local radio. Call today, 870-863-6126.
Welcome back. So that's important to me with Cliff and Dr. Bill. It is so good that you have joined us today. We feel honored. It is a great day. I am in Missouri, in Ellington, Missouri, and I'm speaking at an event here all week, and it has been really, really good. I tell you, Dr. Bill, it is 77 degrees up here.
Oh, get out of here. You don't mean it.
77 degrees in the hills. We've gone down by little creeks. We've seen deer. We've seen so many cool things. My kids have gotten on zip lines, and I've been terrified. But it's been good to be out here, kind of get away from everything for a little bit, and speak to a bunch of people about some of the stuff that we're talking about here today. We're bringing awareness to the DHP centers and looking for new locations to open. And like we always say, if you need anything, you hear us talking. I know it's hard to call sometimes and talk through a cell phone on the radio, but if you need to talk, you can feel free to call us and set up an appointment with Dr. Bill or one of the other great therapists we have down at the DHP Center. I'm going to give you that number real quick. It's 870-444-5240. If you call today, you are going to hear Brother Zach. He's going to get you all set up with an appointment and locked in to be able to see one of our great therapists to be able to help. And there's many people who come to see us, and you're always looking to be able to help more and more people. And so please call if you're going through anything, if you're struggling, if you think, man, maybe this is me, maybe this is my spouse, and I need somebody to help us walk through this. Please call the DHP Center, 870-444-5240. We're up here also talking about Chasewell, which is our nonprofit for helping people who can't pay for their sessions. We've got a lot of things going on, and I'm telling you, it's a great, great, great day, and I'm so happy that you're here with us. We're talking about gaming addictions. We've dabbled a little bit in cell phone addiction, but Dr. Bill, you mentioned earlier some type of test. Why don't we go through that test to see maybe who is battling these things, and maybe they don't know, maybe this will spark it a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to try and make this, I'm glad you brought that up. And before I give this, let me just give a shout out again to everybody here in El Dorado. You know, I live in Arkadelphia, but I love El Dorado. I was out today walking on your town square, and you know, I tell you, beautiful. I don't even think there's a word in the vocabulary that can really describe just what a wonderful place that is. People interacting with one another, perfect strangers greeting me. You know, I tell you, I told someone I could spend the morning just sitting on a bench around the El Dorado Square, just soaking it all up. It is so refreshing and down to earth, and just people in El Dorado should be so proud of their town square. It is just a delight.
Hey,
to
that's
be there.
where we're located.
Amen.
You know?
Amen. Amen, brother.
And it's voted best downtown in America.
I can understand why.
And also Pups Barbecue is down there. You can get you some pups.
That's right. That's the best barbecue around, isn't it?
Yeah, I tell you what, you go to Pups and you tell them you want the Cliff Preston discount, and they'll charge you double.
Hey, there you go. That's right. And if you tell them you know Dr. Visor, they'll charge you triple. Okay, let me give you this internet addiction test, okay? If you've got a pen, get your piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to make this real simple. There are only 5 questions, okay?
All right.
Okay, now there are 5 questions, and what I want you to do is I want you to respond from 0 to 5 for each of these 5 questions. 0 means it's not applicable. In other words, it has nothing to do with you. 1 is rarely. 2 is occasionally. I may be going too fast. 0 is not applicable. 1 is rarely. 2 is occasionally. 3 is frequently. Okay, 3 is frequently.
Yep.
4 is often. 4 is often, and 5 is always. Now, to our listeners who are frustrated and say, oh my gosh, how do they expect me to, I'm driving, I can't do this. Go back and listen to our podcast. You can listen to our podcast, you can hear this, and we'll go through it again on the podcast, and you can take this test. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so 0 not applicable, 1 rarely, 2 occasionally, 3 frequently, 4 often, 5 always. Okay, question number 1. How often do you find that you stay online longer than you intended? How often do you find that you stay online longer than intended? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, how often do others in your life complain to you about the amount of time you spend online? How often do others in your life complain to you about the amount of time you spend online? So I would say to our listeners, as a therapist, that's one of the questions I would ask you. If you came in to see me, I would just say, just very casually, I'd say, how often do people complain to you about the amount of time that you spend online? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3, how often do you check your email? Now, you were talking about this earlier. How often do you check your email before something else that you need to do? In other words, you've got something you need to do, but that can just wait because you're going to check your email first.
Yeah,
how often
right.
do you check your email before something else that you need to do? Okay, number 4, how often do you lose sleep because of the late night logins? In other words, you're not sleeping because you're logging in.
Yeah.
Okay. How often do you lose sleep because of late night logins? Number 5, how often do you find yourself saying, just a few minutes more when online? I'm going to quit. I'm just going to give myself 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes is just turns into 30 minutes or an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So you put your numbers in, then you add them up. Okay. Here we go. If you scored 7 or below, you don't have any signs of internet addiction.
Yeah.
If you scored 8 to 12, then this suggests a mild internet addiction. You may spend a little too long on the web sometimes, but you're generally in control of your usage. If you scored between 13 and 20, that means moderate internet addiction, which would imply that your relationship with the internet is causing you occasional or frequent problems.
Yeah.
Now, if you scored between 21 and 25, give DHP, find your favorite therapist. For heaven's sakes, give them a call, because that suggests severe internet addiction, and that really does imply that the internet is causing significant problems in your life. Cliff, it's like we said earlier. Technology is a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad we have it. And yes, like you, I have looked up facts all the time on my phone. But technology has the capacity to enslave us if we're not careful. And this is the message that I'm preaching, that we're preaching today, is not to let the internet or gaming become your life, because there's
Yeah.
much more to life than playing a game or being on your cell phone.
Yeah, I'm always the one to give personal, some personal stories, just because I think that's the only way people get well is if they know that other people have struggled. And
Sure.
I'm sitting there going over the list, and the list to me right now, I mean, I'm really close to a zero. There's not a lot of things that I do in that way that would cause me to be, that even to be close to a 4 or 5.
Right.
I do know that there are times in my life when my number would have been pretty high, at least in the 14, 15 range.
Mhm.
I tried to think through that as 25-year-old Cliff, and he checked his email all the time. He was like, "Oh, just give me a few more minutes." Whenever it was time, he hardly ever slept. I know when I was in college, there were times that I would play games all night and I'd miss my first class because I'd played games all night.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing, Cliff, and I want to, we talk about what a simplified program we have, and I think we do. Because, I can sit here and I can spout out psychological theories all day long, and I can be as Freudian as the next guy. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in where the water hits the wheel. So let me just say it to our listeners in this simple way. Everybody, everyone, you, me, all our listeners, we all have to cope with life and the difficulties that life throws us. And everybody out there has had some life deal you some lemons. That's for sure.
Right.
And there's nothing we can do about that. And there's a very interesting study, and I want to share this with our listeners because I think they're going to find this interesting. This study found that 9%, Cliff, of elementary and secondary school students were classified as pathological gamers and were using video games as a coping strategy when already distressed or anxious.
Wow.
So, when people are depressed, or when they've got anxiety, nobody wants to be depressed. I've been in the mental health field for over 30 years. I have yet to have somebody come in and say, I'm so glad I'm depressed. I just love being depressed. It is the best feeling in the world. No, nobody wants to be depressed.
That's right.
So they're looking for a way to escape from their depression and their stress. Now, some people are going to drink it away. Some people are going to get into porn. Some people are going to get into substance abuse.
Yeah.
And, I could go on and on with addictions, but I'll tell you right now, some people are going to get into gaming, into internet games. And that's the way they're going to deal with their anxiety and their depression.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, as we talk through things, it's important. This is something that I just believe in my life, and as I do our ministry and whatever we do, I think our stories help each other. Somebody is struggling, they're gonna be more apt to tell their story to somebody who has struggled with the same thing, and that's why I feel willing to tell it. And then, in my world, I'm a pastor, you're a pastor. I think that's the way that the hard times get better.
I think so too.
We don't go through those times in vain if we know God can use it to help other people, and I'm on that train as well.
Well, absolutely.
That if God has helped me beat something, then I want to tell that to other people.
That's right.
And
that's right.
We live in a world right now that has so many different things that you can be addicted to. I mean, we've talked about there are almost too many to count.
Oh, that's true.
Of things that you can be addicted to, and our goal is to help tell people, make them aware, and then help them learn how to build up, defenses against those things.
Well, you're absolutely
you would
right.
say put a fence around those areas in your life and try not to get into those things. So I think we got just a few more minutes here, but I would think, what are some ways if somebody came in and said, Dr. Bill, I got some issues, and tell me what I could do to put up some defenses so I could help myself in this addiction that I have. What are some things I could put in place to do that?
You know, there are a lot of things that I could suggest, Cliff, and just the time that we've got, I would certainly say that I think parents stepping in and being parents and just giving more control over the life of their children is much needed. I think to sit down and do some personal assessment, to ask yourself the question, how much time am I spending playing video games, and is this something that has really become out of control for me? I think things like making sure that your life is filled with other activities other than just your video game console, and if you have to, I've had clients where sometimes the best thing to do is just simply unplug it or put it away, and just go cold turkey. And I know that can be very, very difficult, but sometimes that's the only way to defeat it and to be able to manage it.
That's right. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it's ever a bad thing that if something is taking up a ton of your time that you just stop it. You find a friend who will help you pull the plug on it and be done with it. And I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it help. I've put up many barriers around things that I don't want to fall into, and I've fallen into some, and it's frustrating, and it hurts people around us. You say this all the time. The addiction doesn't just hurt you; it hurts the people around you, and we don't want that. If we could turn the focus to the people who we love, then I think a lot of times we're gonna stay away from some of those things.
Well, I agree, and I think, Cliff, just one last thing, I would just say that kids may think that, and they may argue with parents. They may say, "Oh, that Dr. Visor, he doesn't know what he's talking about." I'm having plenty of interaction with my other friends online. But the thing about it is, that's not the kind of interaction that God has made us to be. We need to learn how to interact with people face to face, and to be able to carry on substantive, meaningful conversations. And I'm afraid that for a lot of kids today, they are sorely lacking in social interaction skills because they've been spending all their time playing video games with people they don't even know and can't see.
Yeah. It's becoming basically a lost art.
It is. It is.
And what I would say too is there are a ton of people who, this is just a whole nother subject for a whole nother day. But there are a ton of people who are just able to say whatever they want to say and believe there's no consequences because you don't feel those in the moment.
Right.
But there are consequences to what we say, and what we say matter. Our words have power, and we need to be careful with those things. But I'll tell you, Dr. Bill, it's been great to be with you again.
Well,
what I do want to say is, if you need help, if you feel like this is something that you are struggling with, if you feel like it's somebody that you know is struggling with, feel free to call us at the DHP Center. It's 870-444-5240. You can schedule an appointment with Dr. Bill. You can schedule an appointment with one of our great therapists at the clinic. We're going to be in your area pretty soon, talking about DHP centers, how we can, how we can grow. We just appreciate you for joining in. I love the guitar; it makes me want to play. I hope I haven't broken anything, Dr. Bill. It's been wonderful to be with you again today. Well, listen, everybody. I want to thank Jay Randall at the studio, Bud at the studio. Everybody who is back who's taking care of this, thanks for taking care of me when I've been gone. So thankful that you've listened to us. Don't forget to tune in next week. You've been listening to That's Important to Me with Cliff and Dr. Bill on 94.3 FM, 1400 AM KELD. We'll see you next week. Don't quit, everybody.